Long before the modern cities and states of today's Nigeria emerged, long before the clamor of colonialism and the heavy footfalls of European ships reached the shores of West Africa, there stood a kingdom, mighty, structured, artistic, feared, and glorified. A kingdom that would come to be known across seas and continents. A kingdom whose legacy refuses to be erased, even after centuries of war, betrayal, and plunder. This kingdom was Benin. Not the country Benin of today, but the Great Benin Kingdom, the heart of a civilization that once burned bright and ruled supreme in the forests of West Africa. To understand the rise of the Benin Kingdom is to journey through time, through the whispers of ancestral spirits, through the songs of warrior praise, through the stories etched into bronze, ivory, and earth. It is to see a world where power was not just enforced but performed through ritual, where kings ruled as divine intermediaries, and where art was not just a reflection of life but a tool of memory and authority. This is not merely a story about thrones and swords. It is a story of people, politics, resilience, and the unyielding spirit of a civilization. The land that would become Benin was once a collection of forest communities, loosely connected through trade, customs, and kinship. These were the Edo-speaking peoples, settled in a rich tropical landscape, fertile, green, and crisscrossed by rivers. Small villages dotted the area, each ruled by its own chief or elder. There was no single king. Power was spread out, flexible, negotiated. Life revolved around farming, fishing, hunting, and religious practices. Ancestors were venerated. Spirits were feared. Nature was alive. But beneath this seeming calm, forces of centralization and power were gathering. The people needed protection. They needed coordination. They needed something more than scattered leadership. From this need would come the early foundation of what would become one of Africa's most powerful empires. Before the title Oba ever existed in Benin, there were the Ogisos, meaning rulers from the sky. Myth and history blend in the memory of these early kings, whose reigns are often described as semi-divine. The Ogiso dynasty, according to oral history, ruled for centuries, possibly as far back as 900 AD. Their capital was Ubinu, which would later become Benin City. These early rulers created the structures of governance, including royal councils and courts, that would later shape the formal empire. The most notable among the Ogisos was Ogiso Owodo, the last of his line. His reign ended in crisis, with unrest, disputes, and spiritual disapproval. His failure opened a void in leadership, a vacuum that would demand new blood, new legitimacy, and ultimately a new dynasty. This is where legend steps in. After the fall of the Ogiso line, the Edo people were in turmoil. They needed a ruler, not just a strong man but a divine king, someone chosen by the gods. So they sent a delegation all the way to Ife, the spiritual homeland of the Yoruba people and the birthplace of Oduduwa, the mythical ancestor of many West African royal lines. From Ife they brought back Prince Oranmiyan, a son of Oduduwa. He ruled, but he found the Edo people difficult to govern. Their customs were different, their spirits unfamiliar. Frustrated, he returned to Ife, but not before fathering a son with an Edo woman. That son would become the first true king of the new Benin, Oba Eweka I. With Oba Eweka a new dynasty was born. A dynasty that would last for centuries. A dynasty that would transform Benin from a cluster of villages into a centralized, militarized, and sacred monarchy. This was the beginning of what we now call the Obaship of Benin. From the 12th century onward, Benin began to transform itself into a formidable power in the region. The Obas were not just rulers, they were gods on earth, the heads of a deeply spiritual kingdom where political and religious authority were inseparable. They were advised by powerful chiefs, led armies, controlled trade, and oversaw vast public works. Oba Eweka moved the capital to what is now modern-day Benin City and began to fortify it. Moats were dug, deep, wide, and long, creating one of the greatest earthworks in the ancient world. Walls surrounded the city and beyond, stretching for thousands of kilometers. The city itself was carefully planned, with royal roads, market squares, and sacred groves. At the center stood the Obas Palace, vast, decorated with bronze plaques, coral beads, leopard skins, and carved ivory. It was said that visitors were stunned by the order, cleanliness, and grandeur of the city. The Portuguese, when they arrived in the 15th century, called it the most beautiful and best-governed city in West Africa. Perhaps no other symbol of Benin's rise is as enduring as its bronze art. More than decoration, these artworks were historical documents, religious icons, and instruments of political communication. The famous Benin bronzes, cast using the lost wax technique, were created to immortalize the lineage, power, and glory of the Obas. Each plaque told a story, of wars, of rituals, of diplomacy, of daily court life. The level of detail, realism, and symbolic richness was unlike anything in West Africa. Ivory tusks were also carved with elaborate narratives. Coral beads, reserved for royalty, adorned the necks of kings and queens in the sculptures. These works were kept in the royal palace and used to instruct new Obas on their history and duties. This was artist power. To control history, to define your own image, to place your narrative in bronze, that was the genius of Benin. To speak of the rise of the Benin Kingdom is to remember that Africa has always had civilizations, with laws, cities, kings, art, philosophy, and power. The story of Benin is not a tale of tribal villages waiting for civilization. It is a story of civilization itself. It is a rejection of the myth that Africa had no history before colonization. The rise of Benin proves otherwise. It tells us that Africans governed themselves, ruled vast territories, produced priceless art, and engaged the world on their own terms. It reminds us that the ancestors left behind not just ruins and relics, but blueprints for identity, pride, and resistance. The bronze plaques may now sit in European museums, but their spirit remains in Benin. The palace may have been burnt, but the legacy burns brighter than ever. This is the beginning of that legacy.